Somebody.
Oh, the Randy Meisner guy.
So maybe tell that story.
Give me that.
Yeah, so I got a call at the shop. This is Randy Meisner, formerly of the Eagles. And I'm like, well, it's a pleasure to meet you. You know, what can I do for you? Now I'll condense the story.
No need for us. We like stories.
You know, well, me and who was the original lead guitar player for the Eagles? Bernie Leadon, or however you pronounce it. Me and Bernie are getting a new band together, and we just got a deal, and blah, blah, blah. And we've seen your ads and heard about your work, and we'd like to talk to you about supplying us with some guitars. I'm like, well, I'm delighted to talk about anything with you. And I'm, grateful that you called. And so he went on to tell me about his plans, and I'm asking him, and he's talking a lot, one of those people, and no problem. And so he wanted to go into some areas about the guitars and stuff like that, and he'd called out of the blue, and I had just had a baby, so I had to bail. So we made a phone appointment for the next early evening, and he calls me spot on. And he started saying some things that were like raising my suspicion. And at one point, what really raised a red flag was, well, I understand you've built a couple of guitars for Jimmy Page. I said, yeah. And then he starts talking trash about Jimmy Page. And you know as well as I do that in this line of work, you don't do that.
No.
You know, even if you can't stand the guy, you keep that stuff, professional. So, okay, so I found a way to get him off the phone. Next morning, I wait for California to wake up, and I actually got Irving Azoff on the phone, which I'm told is almost impossible. Yeah, do you represent, Randy Meisner? No, I no longer represent Randy, but here's the number of the woman that handles him. So I called her, got her on the phone.
You did your homework for real on this one.
Well, it raised a red flag, and I never give a guitar away. Everybody pays. So if they're going to try to talk me into free stuff, that's tricky to negotiate anyway. But, he needs to be the real thing. So she explained, oh, I know exactly who that is. It's a Randy Meisner impersonator who's been getting, thousands of dollars of free equipment in Randy's name and pissing people off to the point where the real Randy.
He's probably blacklisted.
Yeah. I mean, he was almost attacked at a club gig by some irate person who fell for the ruse. I said, well, listen, I've got a phone appointment with this guy tomorrow, and this is what really surprised me, Baxter. I said, why don't I ship a couple boxes of rocks, and you have the cops waiting. And you know what?
That sounds awesome.
She wasn't at all interested.
She didn't care?
I mean, we could set up a sting and put this guy behind bars. She wasn't interested at all. I don't remember how she put it, but it's not necessary. We've got it under control here or something. Well, they didn't have it under control.
It kept going, right?
Yeah. So one of my best friends, whom I met here in Southern Pines when I lived here as a young guy, knew the story, and I wouldn't tell everybody that story at the time because, again, it's in the business, so only between friends. And he sent me a clipping from like the LA Times or something that the guy had been busted at an illegal poker game.
Oh.
He got sent up the river, did time, got out, and he started it again. And that's the last I know.
Well, that's it. Terry McInturff, detective at large, guitar builder by secondary trade. But
we're rolling?
Man, we're always rolling, man. That's how this works.
Hello.
I gotcha.
It's like a recording studio. Catch every note.
That was perfect. That's a great story. That's great. So, we were talking about this earlier. Thanks for sharing that with us.
I
Sure.
follow you on Facebook, so that's how I knew the story when you talked about it.
Oh, bless your heart, man. Thanks for being one of our friends. I appreciate that greatly. I do.
When I was just on the phone right before you came in with a fellow named Gabriel Curie from Echo Park Guitars, who is a
Yes.
big fan of yours as well, and he just wanted to give you a hello.
Oh, that's astounding. He's amazing. Wow.
He's a great builder. But he thinks that's the whole thing. Is that every time I talk to someone about you, you're like the builder's builder. Apparently, do you know that? Have you heard this before?
No.
I don't know if you. All the builders like you for some weird reason.
Oh, man.
And Gabe was like, God, I wish I was there. I wish I could meet him. I'm like, what?
Oh,
He's
wow.
not that special. He's just kind of strange. He's like Jeff Beck, but Southern.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how to react to that. I mean, I'm incredibly grateful, but you know,
It's cool.
at this point, I'm the last person who should believe that I'm special, because what keeps me going is that the fact, as I've learned it over the past 48 years doing this full time, is that it's more than one career's worth of knowledge, even in this gorgeous jazz master. Let's look at that jazz master. To really know that guitar, you have to, down to the molecular level, you know, we have to look at what the cell wall of that particular species of wood is. How readily is it going to exchange, you know, moisture relative to the, you know, environment it's stored in. And this, by the way, plays a lot into neck stability. You know, we've got chemistry involved in the finish work. We have to know how to deal with that. We have structural engineering regarding how that neck reacts under load. By the way, a guitar neck is a cantilever. How does a cantilever react under load? We need to know all of this. And there's something new to be learned every day. As a matter of fact, this guitar behind me, I got it strung up yesterday. I would not have been able to build that guitar 5 weeks ago.
Just because of the knowledge basis, or because of
what I've learned in the past 5 weeks. And yeah, I'd be able to build one that looked like it, but there are little things that keep me going. Like yesterday, after all of these years, you know, these little screws that hold the humbucker ring on the body?
Oh yeah, we know.
I've been drilling that hole 14 thousandths of an inch too small for like 40 years. I finally, I'm sick of this. I keep saying it's too tight. It's just a smidgen too tight. Just open it up 14 thousandths of an inch. Why didn't I, you know, there's something to learn new every day. I just tried a new polishing compound, so yeah. If I start thinking you know, comments like you just pass along from other people, I mean, it astounds me. I just live in a cocoon. I don't know.
Well, I think all builders kind of do that I've known. They all live in their own little cocoons, but that's the word on the street, is that you're the builder's builder. They all respect and love what you've done.
Well, God bless them for it.
You were one of the first, truly indie ones out there to do all by yourself. You're not trying to set up a big manufacturing plant, but really making guitars solo. And it seems like you don't even view yourself as a guitar builder as much as a guitar alchemist and a student, maybe. Of the woods, because that was sort of a shocking introduction into guitar building for me. When you said it, that was cool.
It's what keeps me interested, you know, the science of it, the music of it, everything. And I never had plans on being in a production environment for McInturf guitars, TCM for short, my initials. That happened almost by accident, but I've been building this whole time. I didn't really see it coming until a person wanted to become my partner and explore the possibility of launching something. So I've been in a true production environment. And it was modest. We had 8 people.
When did that start?
That was 1997 through 2001, when the dot-com bubble burst. And we got up to the point where we were regularly selling and building 10 guitars a week, which is small potatoes.
That's a lot of guitars.
Well, and no CNC, nitrocellulose lacquer. And with time, I had an amazing team, but I was working upwards of 80 hours a week, and my team was awesome, but a lot of that 80 hours was working at night, repairing errors.
I had a feeling that's what you were going to say.
You know, and I had a baby on the way, and this, that, and the other, and I missed the communication with the individual too.
Right.
I really missed my repair and restoration days, not only because that's the best education I could ever recommend for a guitar maker, ever. Get in deep, massive repair and restoration experience, but also working one-on-one with the people, every guitar being different. I'm a people person. I can honestly say I can't recall a single bad customer, man. Now, they're challenging situations, but you know what? If I look at that, you know, I'll take responsibility for the fact, you know, sometimes it's a communication error on my part, you know. If you make sure that you both know, the end user and me, we're both on the same page, and I've tried to develop a routine by which I can narrow down what sound we're trying to build, which is the number one thing. Looks are different. You know, that's a separate topic. You know, what sound are we trying to build? That took years to figure out, you know, that relationship with the client. So I got lonely, you know, just shipping out. And one of the many reasons I'm so delighted to be here. And by the way, if anybody's watching, and I'm not just saying that this is a gorgeous establishment with fantastic stock. And as you might imagine, I have been in more than my share of music stores.
I have a feeling you've been in a few shops along the way.
And I first visited a casino 3 years ago, and I couldn't wait to return. It's taken 3 years because of family matters. I had to care for my mom and run my business. But, you know, you have a gorgeous place, man.
Thank you.
Work.
We have a good little family here.
Yeah, I can
it's
tell.
a lot of fun, and it's neat. And only because our joy is getting to meet strange folks like you. Strange folks like all of our friends that buy these guitars out there and they love to play them, and it gets nerdy like we do.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating for us to get to talk to you because your approach is so different than some of the major manufacturers we deal with, some of the independent, huge boutique builders, but it's also, there's a similar line of just the love of creation that, like, you know, it can get lost when you get too big, but when it's, you know, I feel it can get lost when you're small trying to get big too. So it's cool that you still have it for some strange reason. You know, do you get excited every day to build?
I'm sorry?
Are you excited every day to build a guitar?
I mean, I have an easy answer for that. I can't wait to get to work in the morning.
That's nuts. How many of you?
I can't wait.
That, you know?
I consider myself to be one of the luckiest people I've ever known because I'm happy. And I have a fantastic wife, and my career is so far from over. My best work is still to come.
Right on.
Big time, big time. But I learn something all the time and meet wonderful people from all over the world. And where I work is under the umbrella of the North Carolina Arts Incubator in Siler City, North Carolina.
I mean, that's pretty rad right there.
It's pretty Mayberry.
That's pretty rad.
But an art colony has grown up, art district has grown up, you know, in the area of my shop. You know, my shop's not the reason why, but I am in the middle of that, so I'm surrounded.
Part of it is they all tend to find each other in those things.
Yeah.
Like Southern Pines has it a bit.
Yeah.
Even the small little town of Star has that whole, like, the glass works and everything. And
I'd love to go see some of that
Star's
glass
cool.
work.
It's a neat, this giant fact. It's just cool that North Carolina has this. We were talking about Steve Carr's amps.
Yeah.
And there's one over here in this room. There's more in my apartment.
Yeah.
More in the showroom next door.
Oh, I think the world of him as a human being and amp designer.
He's a cool cat.
He's a sweetheart. He's good. He's really good.
So, where did this whole journey start? You as a builder?
It started here in Southern Pines. I lived here. My parents moved me to Southern Pines from Chicago.
Wait, where in Chicago?
Well, it's actually the North Shore, so it's a suburb north of town.
Because I moved from Barrington.
Okay.
Yeah, so I know where you are.
I was in Lake Bluff.
I got you.
Okay.
That's funny. Continue.
Yeah, dig it. So I was informed that we are moving to North Carolina for your senior year of high school.
Oh.
And I was like, ran to the encyclopedia and looked up North Carolina. And it was an old encyclopedia, and people were picking cotton as one of the primary photographs. And I didn't want to leave my friends. You know, we knew about Andy Griffith up there, but North Carolina wasn't much in the news. 2 weeks max after I moved here, I was ready to get down on my knees and thank my parents.
Really?
Yeah, man. I was the cool guy from Chicago with a Gibson SG, you know.
But where did you go to high school?
Pinecrest.
You went to Pinecrest?
I graduated from Pinecrest in 1974.
That is awesome.
I was nobody in Chicago. Here, I played the new kid in town. I played that card hard, bro.
Note to any young people watching this: it's the best thing when your parents have to. If you're a military kid, embrace it, and do it.
No doubt, no doubt. I mean, you get to rewrite your own history. Once a couple of my friends from Chicago area came to visit me, they wanted to move down, and I'm like, no. I was discouraging.
This is my facade I've created here.
Yeah. Don't mess with my girls.
I am cool.
Yeah, these Southern girls are so friendly. Couldn't believe it.
That is
true. So I graduated from Pinecrest High School not knowing what I wanted to do, and subscribed to Guitar Player magazine, and an article about the Roberto Von School of Lutherie that had just opened up appeared in an issue, and I must have read that article 20 times, and my parents were delighted that Terry's found something he's interested in doing.
Wants to do something.
You know, I thought I wanted to be a scientist, but I'm terrible at math.
That could be a problem.
And yeah, especially if you're into astronomy, you know.
It's another problem right there.
Astronomers I love were like back in the 1800s, they were actually doing that.
Yeah, no.
But so with a lot of help from Mom and Dad, we all as a team sent me to Phoenix. It was probably one of the first 10 classes they taught. It was a 4-month course. I graduated with a couple objects, an acoustic object, electric object that had strings. They were technically guitars. And I had my little certificate, and I got home, and I went to Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Right on.
The first of one of my early blessings. I got a job as a wholly unqualified guitar repairman at the best music store in town, and it was surrounded by a world-class acoustic music scene.
What was the shop?
It was called Oxbow Music.
Okay.
And pre-war Martins, Lloyd Loar F5 mandolins, classic Gibson banjos.
I would hate to ask how
old Gibson.
affordable that stuff was back then compared to today.
Well,
I'm sure it was still expensive, but
I didn't really go shopping for pre-war Martins. I knew I was too young and irresponsible to own something that frail, to be honest with you. But in the electric market, a 65 all-original Fender Stratocaster in really fine shape would be about $350. Oh. And you'd know the good ones from the bad ones because, well, the store right down the street from me would typically have 7 or 8, now called vintage. Back then they were used guitars. And back then, just because something was made in 1961 didn't mean it was a good guitar.
Oh.
Now they're all good all of a sudden.
Yes.
But the wall hangers
we have a saying, like, sometimes an old guitar is just an old guitar. It's not always good.
Yeah.
That's one of our things here, too.
Yeah. How good a day was the factory having that day? But, I bought my 68 plexi panel Marshall tremolo head. That was $350. A lot of stuff was $350.
That's a magic number, it seems. So you were there for a while, and you're the repair person of this scene that was happening in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, for
luthier.
For a couple of years, few years. the business was sold, and at that point I knew I wanted to go independent. So I opened up my own shop in the next town over, Durham, North Carolina.
Awesome.
And that would have been 1980, I guess.
Okay.
81, something like that.
And you opened up a shop as a luthier?
Yeah.
For repairs? Okay.
Yeah. And that was such a burgeon. It was a fantastic music scene. I was doing 60 hours a week up there. My main focus at the time, though, was my band, because my band kept getting advance money and nibbles, demos, and money from labels, and I thought I wanted to be a rock star. You know,
so close.
We've all been there.
I think everyone in this game is a wannabe rock star.
Yeah, exactly. And when I came to Chapel Hill area, that was the ground floor of what came to be known as alt rock, and North Carolina's alt rock scene, you know, changed rock and roll a little bit, and I was blessed with being on the ground floor of that and seeing what was going on. It was fantastic. So I opened up my shop in Durham. You know, I'm building the whole time, but the shop in Durham was the first time that I had a proper spray booth.
Okay, so you could really...
Yeah, and any proper repair shops, you gotta have a spray booth, in my opinion. But that's hard to do with local codes and things.
It's hard to do even with that. It's a different step.
Yeah, finish work is fascinating. I love finish work. There's so much to learn and master. But I've always had a spray booth ever since, you know, even if I had to build one at my home. But fast forward to late 80s, the band thing wasn't going to work. And I'd never served an apprenticeship, and I'm like, you know, I really need to learn from somebody, you know, because I'm kind of hitting a brick wall. I'd already developed some aspects that are still on that guitar, like the zebra nut and stuff like that, but and my version 1 of my neck design and build schedule. I'm on version 6 now, but that got me going. So I landed a job with one of the most intelligent people I'll ever know, a man by the name of Michael Dresner, who at the time was subcontracting the building of Ken Smith basses out of a small town up in Pennsylvania. In addition, this brilliant individual was one of the editors of Fine Woodworking magazine.
Oh, wow.
And so check it out. It was me. There were 3 of us working, plus Michael, who mainly did office work and all that. And what I learned from him was a lot of finish work. I'd already been doing nitro finishes and stuff like that, but Michael is known as a finish expert. He has multiple publications about finishing, mostly for the furniture trade. But he had friends in the industry. It would be a matter of the chief finish chemist for the 3M Corporation. He's in the area. He comes by and for lunch, and I end up getting treated to a 2-hour lecture on finish chemistry by the chief finish chemist for 3M, who later I stayed in touch with, and he helped me analyze some of the old lacquers so I could come up with the closest thing to the old Nicholas Nitro that you can get. It turns out to be a blend.
Seriously. You take this quite seriously, the finish work. That's great.
Oh, it's fun.
That's cool.
It's a freaking blast.
I haven't heard anybody really get that excited about finish work, so I love this. This is cool.
Oh, it's a freaking blast. I just discovered the best sandpaper in the world, too. It's made in Japan, and it's made by a company called Kovacs.
That is too
And
funny.
you can, have you ever heard of wet sanding? Pardon me if I digress, but wet sanding is typically the last stage of sanding before you go to the buffers, and I have pedestal buffers. It's like a giant shoe shine machine.
Which is the best.
Right, so wet sanding, you know, up until, here's another reason I couldn't build this guitar until recently. This is the first guitar I ever sanded with the new paper. It eliminates wet sanding. Wet sanding is a mess. Yes. It is a mess. And if you use soapy water, you can really cause some problems. So I had to use a mixture of naphtha and mineral spirits I'm getting too technical. Stop me. Are you the producer?
Technicalities are just fine here.
All
We
right.
like it technical.
Okay, so, pardon me out there in TV land if I get too technical. I beg your pardon.
Well, this is stuff people would pay to hear classes on, so perfect.
Oh, I am for hire as a consultant, but that's
There you
a
go.
different story. But wet sanding is a mess. It creates this wet slurry, and you have to wipe the liquid off using for lubricant to judge the character of the surface quality. This new Kovac sandpaper, you can dry sand up to 3,000 grit.
Good Lord.
Right?
Right.
So I've been sanding up to 5,000 in the corners, and I still have to wet sand to 5,000. But that's just the little,
Spots.
like
Yep.
this corner. You want that like glass right to that seam, like no excuses, right? And that's hard to get in there. But anyway, little things like that keep me rolling. So
But you've been doing, so I'm thinking your timeline, it's about 15 years of doing this until you've really started. You haven't produced like the Terry McInturf guitars yet, have you?
Well, I signed my name on them.
You had been making guitars?
Oh
this
yeah,
far?
yeah,
When did
yeah.
you start making them?
Yeah, I built my first guitar at Roberto Vine, but then when I took the job in Chapel Hill, it was January, no spray booth, so I had to wait for warmer weather so I could spray outside. And when I think of some of the non-explosion proof fans and lighting,
Yeah.
I gotta cover my face. It's too funny. I wouldn't be laughing if I'd burned, but I mean, by the time late spring rolled around, I could spray. I had like 4 guitars ready to shoot, and Duke students would
No kidding.
would buy them, and some local people. I've lost track of all of those old pieces except for the 2 I still own. And
I mean, it sounds like it's really been an evolution of your building up until even 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Like you're continually, because most people, I mean, I love Fender. I love Fender.
course.
to death. But it's pretty much, the Stratocaster has been the Stratocaster since 1954.
right,
It's been a few little tweaks. They have new models and new things, but it's still the Stratocaster.
right.
And they've almost lost. Sometimes they have to figure out how they used to do the sprays for the finishing, because they'll forget as generations of people pass through there.
Yeah.
Find out the old types of mixtures they used.
Yeah.
Leo didn't use the most expensive; he used the cheapest usually.
Sure.
And it was
Yeah.
that's part of what that beautiful checking and
Yeah.
finishing comes from. It's funny to watch as those companies move forward in time.
Yeah.
It's like you're doing that in a microcosm of your personage.
It's so much fun. And there's a gentleman that wrote an important book for everyone to own. It's called Beauty of the Burst.
Mm-hmm.
And that guy is probably as expert on vintage Fender finishes as anybody. And that guy saved my butt at the NAMM show. That's another story, but
Oh.
yeah, I'd been having my tremolo, vibrato bridges. What do we call that? I've been doing this 48 years. Is this a vibrato bridge? Technically it is, but
I like to
it's
call
a
it
trem.
I call it the wiggle stick.
Wiggle stick,
That
right.
makes me laugh, and I like
There
the
you
words.
go.
It just makes it more fun.
The guy that was building my custom designed wiggle stick bridges suddenly couldn't get them on the phone. I've got like 35 guitars, can't ship without
Just
the
waiting.
bridges. So I go to the NAMM show, and mission number 1, I don't care about selling guitars. That was already taken care of. My mission was to locate the new whammy bar bridge. And so who do I run into the elevator but dear Yaz Iwande, who wrote The Beauty of the Burst. And would you like to meet Mr. Godot? Sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's a Godot bridge I would seriously consider, but it's been out of production for about 2 years. So he takes me over. I meet Mr. Godot. Oh, just such a charming Japanese man. Spoke no English, like beautifully dressed, just total classy guy. So Yaz starts talking Japanese to him. Mr. Godot's eyebrows going up now. Yaz is like building me up to Mr. Godot. End the conversation. He brought that model back into production for me.
Just for you?
Yeah, and John Sewer and Tom, my buddies Tom Anderson, John Sewer ended up using them in return for me being a beta tester. which meant that I was given free Goto parts to file a report on.
Of course, this sounds like a great
And
deal.
so it was just a terrible setup.
You've stumbled into success a few times. It sounds like that.
Yeah, stumbled like
Gosh,
head first. Now still, that's the descendant of that bridge.
that is too funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so who is your guitar for?
Whoever wants to own that sound.
And what's that sound?
Depends upon what they need and whether or not I can make it. It all starts, what sound do we want to build is always my first question.
That's what you do then. You're like,
I build sounds for a living, the way I look at it. And we kind of reverse engineer from there. So my guitar is for the person that will benefit from owning a sound that I'm able to build. I can't build just any sound. But the conversation is always about what sound are we going to build. And it's a different way, perhaps, for a lot of people to think about the guitar.
That is different.
Very, very often people have it in their mind what kind of woods they want, what kind of pickups, what kind of hardware. And these things are all very important, but we have to make sure that they work as a team to produce the sound. So to that end, the initial conversation with prospective client, we talk about sound. And I asked them to send me links to 5 recordings, each of which will point at some aspect of the sound to be built. And along in that conversation, it's really fun too. We talk about the ups and downs of using recordings as tonal references. I'm a recording engineer. And
because that's different than the sound of the actual amp and guitar usually too, than what you hear
no
recorded.
doubt. And maybe a good example of this is for folks in my age bracket, especially when I'm suggesting send me 5 songs, each of which points to an aspect of the sound that you would like me to build. You know, the Allman Brothers Live at Fillmore East comes up now and then. And I have to hold that up as an example of a recording that's not particularly useful to me. The reason being, and it's one of my favorite records from that period of time ever, but to make a record with multi-tracked instruments or more than one instrument playing, each instrument has to be tailored sound-wise so it fits into a particular point in the sound state. Duane Allman's guitar doesn't sound like it sounds on Live at Fillmore East. If we were standing, well, let's see, right there and his Marshalls are there, it would not sound like the record. It would be a lot brighter. There'd be a lot more 3K, ton more 5K, all that stuff. So we have to, when I'm talking to people, like, okay, so it's a necessary evil. It helps me figure out what sound to build. It turns me on to what excites this person musically. And man, I've got so many great mixtapes as a result. It provides fodder for the second conversation, whereby I think I know what you want. Sometimes I say, no, I'm not the correct person for this job.
That's brave to do that because it's smart. We do the same thing, but I like when you can pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
If there might be another builder that will build something for them, but it sounds like you really are doing, like, each guitar is custom built for that person.
It is.
That's the idea.
Yeah. So it's a custom tailored suit.
I like those.
Kind of, aiming towards the Ferrari type of thing. Why should somebody buy one of my guitars is a good question. And I think every builder needs to be able to answer the question, why should somebody buy your guitar instead of a similar
No, I like that question.
product? And that every builder should be able to answer that. And, there's a lot of ways to answer that. a lot of times people that are somewhat new in the business, one of their responses will be because my quality is sky high. And that's an awesome thing, but it's nowhere nearly enough.
No, that's something
It has to be there.
The quality has to be there anyway. But I'd rather have lower quality in a more musical instrument sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, that's sort of my goal. Like, don't get me wrong, I would like it to all mix together, but I'll take musicality over perfection
Yeah, man.
any day.
100
I'll
times.
put that down here.
Yeah.
Because you know, you've been building these for over 5 years now. None of them are perfect. The mathematics of the neck designs to the bridge to the shape of the body cannot be perfect.
Exactly.
It's not perfect. The intonation will never be perfect.
Yeah.
It's so you're chasing hopefully the idea of musical joy and perfection, not perfection of build alone. That's a toast.
Yeah. I couldn't have put it better myself.
We're going into business together.
Yeah.
Terry McInturff and Sam Smith. That's my new name.
Let's do it. We can have some fun doing
There you
something. Who knows?
No, that's cool, man. It's it's a very unique take. I wasn't expecting all that too, which makes me happy.
Oh.
I like when I'm surprised.
Oh, good.
You know,
Good.
you're different in a good way.
Cool.
I already knew you were weird and wacky, but
Yeah, that's why I build guitars. You know, one of the big problems with my earlier work, and I'm not unproud of past work. I've built, I don't know, there's probably about 4,200.
that was going to be my question. How
Small number as these things go.
but over 4,000 guitars.
Yeah, with Terry C. McInturf
Okay.
hand sign on a thing, but I've been hands-on with, it sounds like I'm bragging when I name these numbers, so I'm stay away from that. But
I think it's
one of the
pretty
challenges I had relative to what you just said, which is so spot on, is that until I learned how to try to build a target tonal personality, my main focus was on, okay, if the high E string is supposed to be 13 thousandths above the first fret when the guitar is held in playing positions, it will be 13 thousandths above the first fret. My necks were tight; they would never move. You could tour the world with a truss rod cover on, which is still one of my,
That's really
kind of
funny.
bogus mottos.
That'd be a really lame T-shirt.
Yeah,
with the truss
really
rod
lame.
cover on.
But my guitars were built so tight, and they sounded, they wouldn't bloom
Oh, okay.
tonally. I mean, Pete Townsend, you could do a live at Leeds leap, and you wouldn't hear the SG neck go, "Wow." Listen to that record, you could tell when he's airborne.
Because of the pole.
Yeah, he's jumping in, but they were too tight. So how do you build tight but loose? I had to go back to some old Gretches to learn some lessons I'd learned
kidding.
years before and lost. Because a vintage Gretsch guitar, with the greatest possible respect, okay? Things like the neck joint are rather crude by C.F. Martin standards. You'll find pieces of broken off mahogany veneer, broken off in the dovetail joint, fill it in with hide glue, and put a wood screw in and cover it with a black dot on the back.
God bless
You're good to go. But God bless them. How to build tight but loose. Part of the magic of a vintage Gretsch guitar is the looseness, the imperfection. And that was really hard because
That's cool.
I was so dialed into, okay, till I know what I'm doing with sound, and the acoustics of the electric guitar is a huge topic. Huge topic.
Yes.
Another time, but I have hundreds of spectral analysis files. But anyway, back to learning how to build tight but loose is, well, I'll never know it all about
Well,
that.
because you say that, and that's something we've dealt with our manufacturers, our major manufacturers. Some of them, they've built guitars that are so perfect, they've lost the musical nature of what they were known for. I'm not saying which lines, but there's a few that have gotten so they're so worried about the perfection of it, and then some gets lost along the way. And then I think some of them realized it, and trying to fix it a little bit, which is nice because we think of these monolithic corporations, and they're just people. There's more of them, and then eventually the guys with the ears figure it out and comes back.
Right on.
So if someone wants to get a guitar built with you, how do they do it?
Well, just reach out to me. They can email me. They can contact me on Facebook.
Okay.
My website is just like being built for the past 3 years. Everything I build is already pre-sold. Now, that's not to say I'm looking for more business.
No, but that's cool though.
The way it works, they get in touch with me, and they can, Facebook's an easy way. Set up an appointment, free, no commitment appointment, and it's always fun. Usually lasts, we say, okay, 45 minutes, always an hour and a half or 2 hours. It's so much fun. We talk about sound, talk about what music does this person play, what other guitars do you play, who are some of your heroes, what kind of backline would the hypothetical guitar be played through, etc. And then we talk about, okay, let's dial it back to what sound are we trying to build, because that determines everything. And that at my end of things, that means I have to control the way the string interrupts the magnetic field of the pickup, which means everything besides the electronics are foundational.
Right.
In fact, I build an acoustic guitar with transducers on it. Is the way that I
like that philosophy. What's the practicality? What's the lead time from, we've agreed on a guitar.
Yeah.
I like it. How long does it take to get a guitar built?
Right on. It's a 50% deposit.
Okay.
And I try to keep it down to adult war. Right now, I've been able to catch up a little bit, and I'm at like 10 months right now.
That's not terrible.
No, it's not terrible. I don't want people to wait forever. And I put so much into every guitar that I have the pressure of I'll talk to an industry friend who will remain nameless. I just got back under my own brand. I'm already 2 years back ordered, and I was glad for him because he sounded happy. To me, that would be a nightmare. I can't build that many Ferraris,
I think I know who you're talking about. No, you can't build that many Ferraris.
Nah.
But that's the thing I've learned from watching some boutique makers launch within the past 5 years. Some have flourished and crushed it, and they've kept it small. And then the ones that really tried to go big and get huge wait lists and build so many guitars, they have faltered and failed.
Yeah, it's so sad. It's so sad, and I went in that direction.
Yeah, you were telling that period, up until 2001.
Yeah, when the dot-com bubble burst, boom, I lost $185,000 worth of purchase orders
in a day.
In 3 weeks.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, a purchase order from a dealer committing to buy something, and God bless them, they couldn't sell anything but accessories, sticks, strings.
That happens. That's the business cycle.
Right. And we had no business plan. That was a big mistake not to have a formal business plan.
But it's also like when you give up the control of your builds to other people building with you. I've had other friends that have done that, and that's where the trouble happens.
Yeah.
Because then your pieces get out there with your name on it.
Oh.
And then someone's going to be looking at it and be like, wait a minute, this neck joint's not quite right.
Yeah.
This is Terry McInturf's not that good. And so you've corrected those issues. It's all yours now.
Yeah, it's, there were advantages to being in a production environment, and I've been in a couple of production environments for other brands.
Right.
Back in the day, briefly. I was a custom builder for Hamer for a couple of years.
That's cool.
But I was already a full-fledged builder by then. But I hate to see younger people fail, and I see them maybe making some of the mistakes that I made.
I've certainly made a bunch of mistakes along this game too. It's just part of it.
Right.
And I try to coach younger people than me too. I'm like, don't do that. I have a lot of people call me out open shops. I'm like, just be careful. Here's a few things I'd watch out for now in particular. This environment's weird right now, but it's going to change next year. And it might be better, might be worse, and I'll let you know. But it's fun to help young people try to get into it.
Good for you, man.
It's fun.
I appreciate you for being open to
You too,
people
hopefully.
coming up.
Well, that's why we can't do it forever. You can't do it forever. There's a clock on this thing.
Yeah.
There's a clock on me too, and I was like, there's got to be. If there ain't new young people coming into like the idea of guitar showrooms and shops, then it's just there's no more guitar shops.
Yeah.
It just becomes big boxes, and those eventually become online only, and that eventually becomes nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the whole goal, is to keep there being more inspiration in that, more inspiration in your line of new stuff, new guitars, new things to inspire, new things to take apart and talk about. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Developing some new concepts that I've already started prototyping.
Awesome. Can you show it to us when you're ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Right now, they are typically what I do, particularly if it's a hollow guitar, an acoustic guitar. All my guitars are acoustic guitars, but if I have a hollow spot in one of my guitars, it has to resonate at a particular center frequency. So you'll see me. When I say I'm prototyping guitars, and I'm actively doing that right now, what you're going to see is sections of guitars up on a special stand that doesn't mute the vibration, with a particular set of transducers on it that I can feed into the computer, do waveform analysis. It buttresses what I hear with my ear.
That's cool. That's very far out.
Yeah. The concept of tone wood doesn't matter and stuff that's been going around.
Right. That's
I don't want to dive into that. There's not enough time.
That's another 2-hour conversation.
Yeah, there's not enough time for that.
Give me your 5-second bit on it.
Yeah. But as an example of how the innate resonance of an electric guitar directly affects the electrical signal coming out of the amp. If we have let's say a 24 3/4 inch scale, commonly known as the Gibson scale length. By the way, there's been at least 4 different 24 3/4 inch scale. The classic one from 5960, 24 5/8, but mahogany neck, double cutaway guitar. Most of the shaft is hanging out in space. The G octave at the 12th fret vibrates 392 hertz. That means 392 cycles per second. It's very common for a guitar of that design to have a dead, low sustained note there, or maybe at the 11th fret on the G or the 13th, but somewhere in that area. And the reason that note is dying is not because of a high fret or low fret, because the neck is vibrating in sympathy at 392 cycles per second. It eats the string vibration, turns into heat, boom, you have a dead spot.
It's crazy.
That's a typical example of how the unplugged guitar dictates what the electrical signal can be or cannot.
Tone wood solved, or challenged.
It's all about control. My job is to control the shape, duration of the string vibration, to control how the magnetic field of the pickup is interrupted. And a pickup can then shine its light on the different areas of the ballpark that the acoustics of the electric guitar put the fence on.
I'm with you 100% on that.
All right, we'll move on. Sorry.
We're gonna move on to saying farewell.
Yeah.
And saying thank you for joining us. I think we've had a great conversation. I'm keep expecting someone to say, yes, you have had a great conversation. But the camera doesn't talk. But I know you're watching back there in YouTube universe.
Well,
Terry.
It's been an honor. I'm so flattered you're interested enough to talk to me.
You are fascinating.
I would encourage everybody to visit this place. I mean, it's gorgeous. It smells great.
I encourage everyone to go to Terry's home. He lives at, I'm just kidding. Just go visit him. He's taking showers.
Don't steal my knees. Take anything else.
I thought you were saying don't steal my knees. Yeah. I think that would have been funnier. Anyway, thanks for joining. Click like, subscribe. Terry McInturf, everybody. Thanks for joining us again, Terry.
Call me on Facebook, man.
Peace be with you.
Be good. God, I hope you can use it.